It's 5, and we're live.
Oh, is this thing on? I don't care. I want him to hear.
This is the Pregame Show, your early morning shot of sports on 95.7 The Game.
Come on!
Down by 21 points, 4th and 4. Pressure. Tua steps up. He's going to run for the first down. And takes a shot at the 6-yard line. Hamlin hit him. And Tua down. Picked up the first. Split the seam. But pays the price.
Al Michaels there on Amazon Prime Video, Thursday Night Football. And, God, wish I was opening up the show talking about something else. But that was just a brutal watch last night in all forms. And good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Pregame Show. Joe Spadoni, you got me for the next hour right here on 95.7 The Game. And it's a football Friday. We're going to break down everything. We got a lot of matchups this weekend. 49ers, Vikings. We got Cowboys. We got Saints. We got a lot of good ones. We got Texans, Bears on Sunday Night Football. CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. Should be fun. But it's going to be an unfun conversation. Talking about one Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, national championship with University of Alabama. I mean, the guy's he's got to hang it up, right? It's on my TV screen right now. It's everywhere. Bills ended up thrashing the Dolphins 31-10. And you heard it there from Al Michaels. The game was over. But I understand. You were going to pull your quarterback at that point. The Dolphins have an explosive offense, maybe. Get a touchdown, back in it. Who knows? But when you watch that hit, and it was more so Tua running into Damar Hamlin, and coincidentally, Damar Hamlin obviously suffering one of the most brutal hits in the history of the NFL. Guy nearly died, and now is a starter. Pretty amazing story. I heard Al Michaels on the broadcast saying it was ironic. I was like, that is not ironic, Al. It's coincidental, but it's okay. But when you saw the hit and you saw Tua lay back and he did that thing that he did with his hands a couple years ago, I want to say it was against the Cincinnati Bengals. It was just uncomfortable to watch. And if you're the NFL, and you're Roger Goodell and you're watching that, and you're watching the reactions right now, whether it's on social, whether it's, with your own friends and family watching that, and just, you shudder. Feel bad for the guy. And you want to protect people like that from themselves sometimes. Now, it's easier said than done to tell someone to hang it up. And Joe Shasky brought it up in the thread, and I'm sure Bonta Hill and him will get into it at 6 o'clock in the morning roast. But telling someone it's time to hang it up when they still want to play, after he just got the biggest payday of his life, he's on one of the better teams in the conference. Well, at least we thought that heading into that game, because they were getting absolutely destroyed and boat raced at home against the division rival Buffalo Bills, who my Bills not making the playoffs pick, not looking great early on. I'll just say that. Josh Allen, 13 of 19, 139 yards, a touchdown, but it was James Cook on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and 1 receiving as well that really led the way. And the defense for the Bills just all over Tua in that Miami Dolphins offense, 3 picks for Tua. But the game does feel secondary to the injury he sustained. And he's missed 5 games due to concussion in his career. 5. He's missed a couple due to broken ribs, fingers, he's had a thumb injury, he's had a dislocated hip, ankle. He's missed a lot of time, but the concussion aspect of it for me is what's most concerning. And yes, how it looks matters, because there are times, many times, where concussions happen and the player doesn't react a certain way. Or maybe they're just, they drop their head for a couple seconds, pick it back up, and then they run off. And you can't tell. But when it's that visibly clear to millions and millions of people, it's not a great look for the NFL. And if I'm Roger Goodell, I seriously consider telling Tua that, hey, you need to strongly consider hanging it up. Now, I don't think he's going to do that. Is that a conversation with the head coach? Is that a conversation the family has? Now, it's ultimately going to be up to Tua. And again, he's gone through this multiple times in his career. But we've seen this in other sports. Right? Mike Matheny, catcher for the Giants. Took one off the head. It was over. Foul ball. It was done. He was a catcher at the time, just wearing the mask, but one too many of those. You got to wrap it up. Hey, John Jaso, another guy who retired relatively early because of the concussions. You see it in other sports, but in football, you expect these guys to play through it. Okay, you go through the protocol, you're fine. But last night, it was just scary to look at, man. And I hope Tua seriously considers, maybe taking a step back and reevaluating his future in the league, because this is multiple times now where he's been lying on the ground, his fingers twitching, his head, like his body curling up. Just not the way I wanted to start the show, but I feel like we got to discuss it. It's the story right now. He ended up walking off, thankfully, as I see Mike McDaniel give him a kiss on the head. Very nice, Mike. Anyways, as I digress, 888-957-9570. We're going to break down some of the other matchups over the weekend. What are some of your locks this weekend? Doesn't have to be Niners, Vikings related, but if it is, 888-957-9570 is the number. And again, hit us up via YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Search 95.7 The Game on any of those platforms. Like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at Spadoni_Joe. And yes, we can continue to take your calls and texts in regards to Tua Tagovailoa. Am I being too harsh? Am I overreacting to say that Tua should hang it up? 888-957-9570 from the Xfinity Mobile text line. Dude has to slide, 925. It's another thing in all this. And I'm not using this as an opportunity to prop someone else up, but there's a reason guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning played into their 40s and were not very athletic. They didn't run. Hell, if they ran, it was hilarious to watch. They looked like horses that have just been born, calves learning how to walk, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. But they knew when to go down. Go down early and slide. That is what they knew how to do. Mahomes knows when not to take the punishment. I think Josh Allen kind of knows, but that guy gives up his body all the time. He's got Cam Newton written all over him as far as his body holding up is concerned. Then you look at guys like Brock Purdy, who I think does a hell of a job. Now, he's still learning on the fly. He's doing some of these head dives and stuff like that. I was like, all right, Brock, let's start using your legs a little bit more. But he's got the right spirit. But yesterday, Tua just ran right into Damar Hamlin, and it was almost like all of his force caused, his head to just collapse into his chest, and he just fell back. I'm watching it right now. It wasn't like Damar had a vicious hit to his head or anything like that. His arm wrapped around it, but it was Tua leading with the crown of his helmet. And that's something that the NFL has tried to get rid of, is the running backs leaning with the crown of the helmet. Well, Tua right there, that's what he did. From the Xfinity Mobile text line, 925. It's a payday Friday. It is. Thankfully. Payday Thursday for some of us. But, not going to talk about that. Certain banks. And shout out Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromises for over 60 years. All right. Enough of that. But you can, if you want to keep calling in, I see Jonathan in San Jose. He'll get to it here in a sec. The Tua injury. It was ingrained in my brain. How can you not think about it, man? How can you not? Jonathan, you're in the city. 888, or you're in San Jose, not the city. 888-957-9570 if you want to weigh in. That's the number to call or text. Jonathan, what's going on, man? You're on the pregame show.
Good morning, Spadoni. Is it a Phil Collins Friday? I got to ask, was that last week?
Jonathan, do you even need to ask? It's always a Phil Collins Friday, brother.
It's always a Phil Collins Friday, Spadoni. You're not alone, though, buddy. It's the proof's in the pudding, man. Look at last night. The guy's got it, even for the military, police officers, jobs and careers that require physical ability and endurance and all that, they test you. And so I think, the proof's in the pudding. Last night, we'd rather have Tua alive, man. He's a great football player, but these are not it. And like you said, for the rest of the league, that wasn't really a dirty hit either. So I'm also scared, and I know the 49ers were notorious for their defense and why the league changed their rules, and they should have. But again, we already have sensitive rules on the quarterback. Do you think that they're going to go and add another rule, or, what are we looking at for the rest of the league here, Spadoni?
It's a great question, Jonathan, and I appreciate you calling in. I don't see them. I mean, again, I mentioned it. That leading with the crown of your helmet, which is what Tua basically did, that's outlawed. You're not supposed to do that. And then they're going to call it on quarterbacks, per se. They call it on the running backs all the time. He led with his helmet into the chest/arm of Damar Hamlin, the secondary player for the Buffalo Bills, and you saw it immediately. I don't know what else you could do in that. I don't know what other rules you can enforce. They're trying to protect these quarterbacks the best they can already. Seriously, all the rules since Tom Brady tore his ACL way back when, and Matt Castle had to start that season. It was the one season that Tom Brady didn't win the division in his 20 years over in New England, whatever it was. It was the Chad Pennington-led Miami Dolphins. Comeback player of the year that year, too. And Chad Pennington also had injuries throughout his career, but it was mostly shoulder-related, I want to say. But all the rules have been predicated to protect the quarterback. Every single one of them. Sliding, right? As soon as a quarterback initiates that slide and someone tries to even touch him, that's a flag on the defense. You even try to hit this guy a split second after he throws the ball, roughing the passer. Don't you dare dive at his knees. Don't you dare think about doing that. It's another flag. Sooner or later, you got to realize that they're trying to protect these guys, but it's on the player themselves to protect themselves at some point too. And for Tua and what he did yesterday, and I hate psychoanalyzing because he was just trying to make a play. I feel horrible talking about it like this because his team was not playing well. He was the main reason why they weren't playing well. He was just trying to do something and make a play. But you also have to be smart about it. And last night, it was just not a smart football play. And thankfully, he was able to get up, walk away, diagnosed with a concussion. Just how many times does that have to keep happening, though? That's the scary part. And buried in all of this is just the game itself. The Dolphins got problems after a loss like that. They just can't beat the Buffalo Bills. I want to say they have one win against Buffalo in the last 3-4 seasons, whatever it is. They just can't beat that team. And I would like to be talking about that instead of the concussion. But when that image comes across your screen, you kind of cringe. That's what happens. All right. We can continue to take your calls and texts regarding this. 888-957-9570. I did want to dive into some of the other matchups this weekend, but that obviously was a massive storyline. It's going to continue to be a massive storyline right here, and we'll talk about it all day right here on 95.7 The Game. But some of the other matchups over the weekend, it's not the sexiest slate, I'll say that, but there's some good ones, as I mentioned. Dallas, New Orleans. New Orleans obviously smashing the Carolina Panthers last week. Panthers stink. We'll see if the Saints are any good. Dallas handling the Browns. Browns stink. Deshaun Watson, not very good. We'll see how legit they are. The home opener for Dallas. And then you got, obviously, 10 o'clock. You got the Niners, you got the Vikings, and I love an early start time. This is the best part about living on the West Coast. And when I was visiting, traveling in North Carolina, it was college football season. And like they had like TCU Stanford on at like 10 o'clock and it like just started. I was like, what's going on? What? Like, I don't know how people living on the East Coast can consume all of this football and stay up that late. But thank God I live on the best coast so I can wake up, have a little breakfast, set my lineup, have
it's
a little.
It's pretty tough. I'm not going to lie.
It's tough being on the East Coast. Sammy went to college over there, but being able to have breakfast with my Niners, Vikings, Cowboys, Saints, oh, it's the best. It's the best. Sammy can't beat that.
The worst, not to cut in here, the worst was always the college basketball title game starting at 9:30. But no, Monday Night Football starting at 8:15, 8:30, that was always pretty brutal. I will say, though, the one benefit on the East Coast, those 1 o'clock start times for the A block of games, very key when you're trying to set your fantasy lineup. The amount of times your boy's woken up at 10:01 and, I missed the inactives, and you don't have that happen. That is the one benefit.
It's a rookie mistake, Sammy. You got to set that alarm at 9 o'clock immediately. Every Sunday. I don't care what you were doing the night before. No. You're not. No. Sunday is not the Lord's Day. It's the football day. All right? And you got to be up at 9 o'clock and having that alarm set. Apologies if I offended anyone out there. I got JC around my neck. We're good. We're tight. All right? But God, I love football. Just. I'll be locked in on all, like, this is the thing too. The slate's not the best, but don't get it twisted. I'll be knee deep when the Las Vegas Raiders are already down 20 points to the Baltimore Ravens in the first quarter. I'll be locked in. Why? Because I'm a sick individual and we're all in fantasy. So we don't care if it's a blowout.
Well, that's just what fans do.
Well, is Brock Bowers going to get a touchdown for me? That's what I need. Brock Bowers, is Zay Flowers going to go off? That's what I need. Is Alexander Madison going to get more of the touches than Zamir White, who had a disappointing first game against Los Angeles Chargers? Speaking of the Chargers, they're on the road to Carolina. That's another kind of a, but maybe you load up on Justin Herbert props this week. You got Cleveland and Jacksonville, both 0-1. One of those teams goes 0-2, probably going to be night-night. I believe only 11% of 0-2 teams end up making it. Could be worse than that. I could be completely wrong. I think it's 11% of teams that start 0-2 end up making the playoffs. Seems too high. It can't be 11%. I'm looking that up right now. Teams. I heard that somewhere. 0-2 playoffs. NFL. All right, that's 2020. Here we go. Since the NFL-AFL merger in 1970, a total of 407 teams have started with an 0-2 mark. And of those 407, just 39 have made the NFL playoffs. So it's a 9.58%. So there we go. The most recent being the 2022 Cincinnati Bengals. So there you go. 9.58%. So the Jags and the Browns and the Ravens and the Raiders, it's basically an elimination game for the playoffs. Now, I don't see the Raiders going to the playoffs this year. I don't see the Browns going to the playoffs this year. I like the Jacksonville Jaguars and I like the Baltimore Ravens, both at home in that game. And then you got a rematch of the divisional round in the NFC. We got Tampa going back to Detroit. Baker Mayfield looking absolutely incredible last week, a la Draymond Green. Him and Mike Evans, that connection, man, is just
absolutely incredible.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Mike Evans, by the way, might be the most underrated player of his era. No joke. In an era when you got the Odell Beckhams, right? You had, Devontae Adams. You've had all these wide receivers. Hell, you had Larry Fitzgerald for a lot of Mike Evans' career too. Still out with the Arizona Cardinals. Mike Evans has been in the league since 2014. It's a decade now. 2-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, NFL record, 10 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. I believe that's tied with Jerry Rice. And if he does it again this year, which it looks like he is, starting your career with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Are you kidding me? He's going to finish his career probably with 1,000 receptions. He has 767 now. Almost 1,200 receiving yards and 96 touchdowns receiving. He's easily the most underrated player in his, last decade? Give me another one. 888-957-9570. Mike Evans. Yeah, just model of consistency. And someone, who was it? Was it Evans? Someone snatched him in our fantasy draft this year. Pissed me off. I knew he was going to have a good breakout game. All right. And obviously, the matchup of the weekend is probably going to be Kansas City and Cincinnati for a lot of people. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the Bears and the Texans on Sunday Night Football. Both 1-0. Did it in different ways. Caleb really struggled. Number 1 overall pick out of USC. Supposed to be the next phenom. Didn't even throw for 100 yards. He was not great. Meanwhile, CJ Stroud is just doing what CJ Stroud does. Efficient, calm, cool, collected. He's just a baller. I'm very intrigued to see that quarterback matchup. Very intrigued. I'm riding with Caleb again in fantasy. I don't feel great about it. I picked up Baker Mayfield, and after I just waxed poetically about him and Mike Evans, it does seem counterintuitive not to start Baker. But I'm going to roll with Caleb. I had shot my shot early on. I said he was going to be the rookie of the year. I mean, he was the favorite to do that with a lot of betting books, but I'm sticking by him for now. If he burns me this week, that might be time to pivot. And I did have Jordan Love on my bench, but he's hurt. And I know all of you care about my fantasy football woes right now. I know Brian in Virginia really cares about my fantasy football lineup, but he wants to talk about something else here on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, Spadoni. How's it going?
Oh, it's going, brother. It's a Friday. I can't wait.
Well, it's 8 a.m. on the East Coast here and a cloudy day here in Virginia.
Where are you at in Virginia, Brian? Where are you at in Virginia? My brother lives over there. Now? Where are you at in Virginia? My brother lives over there.
Does he?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Lynchburg.
Nice. Okay, cool.
But, I want to know, why do you think week one there was such bad quarterback play? Does it have to do with the preseason and the quarterbacks and the amount of plays they're getting in? Or it was really bad quarterback play week one?
It's a great question, Brian, and I appreciate it at 888-957-9570. And good morning to you on the East Coast. We love the East Coasters. I like the best coast, the West Coast, but I'm biased. But I did enjoy my time in North Carolina. The quarterback play has been not great. But I do think a lot of this is the defense, and we see this every year, I feel like. And maybe it's just more on display, but the defense is usually ahead of the offense early on in the season. And then you start seeing after the first couple weeks, then you start seeing the big explosive numbers. Then you start seeing, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a lot of blowouts this weekend and a lot of incredible quarterback performances. Like Lamar Jackson, I think is primed to have a breakout game. He had a great game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought Mahomes had a pretty good game. But I think Mahomes has also jaded us because I said this the other day. He had such an incredible breakout year. That's been the standard for him forever. And when he doesn't throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns in his game, it's like, oh, that was disappointing. I mean, that's the standard he has set. I thought Brock Purdy had a pretty good game. He was efficient. Didn't make any mistakes. Didn't have any touchdowns. Probably should have if Brandon Ayuk caught the ball. But he didn't. CJ Stroud had a pretty good performance. Anthony Richardson, all in all, for him, after missing damn near all of last year, thought had a pretty good performance. He had a lot of mistakes, but it's a redshirt year for him. So, and Baker Mayfield, I mentioned, had a good game. Thought Stafford and Goff had good games. So I do think we're overblowing a little bit, Brian, in Virginia, and I appreciate you calling in, that the quarterback play as a whole was just bad. There was bad performances. I mean, if you watch that Raiders-Chargers game, Minshew versus Herbert was not, I'm not putting that in the Louvre. Not doing that. It's just not great. A lot of drops, a lot of just miscommunications, just not great quarterback play overall in that one. Daniel Jones, not great. But I look on the other side. Sam Darnold, pretty damn good. So I hear you, but if you take a deep dive into some of them, I think we are overblowing it just a tad. And I know Troy Aikman talked about it on the broadcast on Monday Night Football saying, preseason's a lot of it and just, not having that preparation with your players prior to, and some of that's true, but also it's just the nature of the game. First couple games takes a little feeling out period. The defenses are ahead. And then as is tradition in the NFL for the last decade, the offenses will inevitably catch up and surpass, and then we're going to have these high-scoring games. Because you know what? That's just what the NFL is all about now. Offense, offense, offense. And I do love offense, but I do miss the days where we had some Legion of Boom-type defenses. I don't know if we're going to see that again. I don't. From the Xfinity Mobile text line, forgot about Caleb, Rookie of the Year, Spadoni. It's going to be Jaden. Oh, he said forget about it. You didn't forget. We'll see. We'll see. I wonder if it'll go to a non-quarterback this year. That's my week one take. You're talking about bad quarterback play. A lot of the rookie quarterback play was not great. Bo Nix, Caleb, obviously, J.J. McCarthy's out for the year. Jaden Daniels, okay. Fantasy-wise, sure. But this isn't fantasy football. It's real life. So could one of these, could a Malik Neighbors or could a Brock Bowers take that offensive rookie of the year? We'll see. Thought both of those rookies impressed in their week ones. We're up against it. God, that flew by. Wait, we got 2 more segments, though, so don't worry. Hang on. Hang tight. 888-957-9570. We can continue to take your calls and text. I think Tua Tagovailoa should seriously consider, stepping back from the sport of football and retiring. Am I overreacting? What say you? 888-957-9570 as he suffered another concussion on Thursday Night Football last night as the Dolphins fell to the Bills 31-10. Scary to look at. Scary to watch. For not just me, but everyone else. And I'm sure his family felt that way as well. So we can continue to get into that. Plus some of your games of the weekend. What are you looking forward to this weekend the most? What matchup are you keying in on? Could be 49ers related. Could be another game. Hey, we're all open here. It's all football because it's a football Friday here. And it's a Phil Collins Friday on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni, 95.7 The Game.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos.
Spadoni. Shut up.
It's the pregame show with Spadoni, my homie. Yeah.
Move on, Joe.
I love Eastern Palo Alto. He called yesterday. I screamed the call. I'm just talking about man. Doesn't call him the roast. He's a tiny and goo caller, but you know what? It's probably not that early. It's okay. We got love the pre-show on the morning roast. His drops alone. And I think that is going to be a Doobie Award category, is best drop of the year. And that's going to be up to me and my discretion alone. There's a lot of them, but I'll keep it to roast drops specifically. I think. There was a point when the old iteration of Steiny Guru Dibs back in the day, we did a whole like March Madness drop tourney. And that was actually pretty fun. I forget which one won. It was a Steiny draw. I think it was a choke artist. I think that ended up winning. Steiny saying choke artist because we did use that one up a lot. But I digress here. It's a football Friday. We're talking Bills, Dolphins. We're talking about the games of the weekend. What game is really intriguing you? It could be the Niners, Vikings related. It could not be. 888-957-9570. The matchup you're looking for this weekend the most and what you're most looking forward to. I would love to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, all powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Speaking of the Niners and the Vikings, is this a trap game for the San Francisco 49ers? Are we going Admiral Akbar? It's a trap? Not with Sam Darnold. I mean, it can't be a trap game if this guy's the opposing quarterback.
Seen ghosts.
Come on. Really? He did look good against the Giants, but I could look good against the Giants. I could go out there right now and throw for 100 yards. Now, a lot of them would be dump-offs to my running backs, but I didn't say I had a cannon or anything. It'd be one of those little push passes that you love in fantasy that they use at the red zone or goal line, that little push pass to Debo, little sweep and you get a touchdown. Those are the best. But here's what head coach Kevin O'Connell, not Rick O'Connell from The Mummy, shout out Brendan Fraser, but Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. They're 1-0, and they're looking ahead to the 49ers and their physical style of play.
Both sides of the ball, special teams, whether they're running it, throwing it, whether they're blitzing or rushing forward, playing coverage. I mean, they just play so hard. This is the team I think of when you talk about play style, not necessarily being about X's and O's. No matter what side of the ball you're defending or playing offense against, they don't particularly care too much if you know what's coming. And I think that's what's a really powerful thing about the way Kyle runs their program there is in a lot of ways you know what's coming and can you stop it.
And obviously Kevin O'Connell comes from the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree. He was on Sean McVay's staff with the Rams before getting that head coaching gig with the Minnesota Vikings a few years back. He's had success with Kirk Cousins, with Josh Dobbs, won a game with Nick Mullins, won a game with Sam Darnold. The guy knows how to coach quarterbacks and to coach offense. He had that incredible year where they had all those amazing come-from-behind victories. What were they down? 30 points to the Colts against the Jeff Saturday Colts. I think that was Thanksgiving Day weekend. And just incredible. Just everyone was watching that going, what the hell's going on? So he knows how to coach his offense. Speaking of a guy that's very important to said offense, Jordan Addison. Torched the Niners last year, wide receiver out of USC. Him alongside Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the league, I should say. It's a scary tandem. Hurt his ankle last week. Here's an update.
Really the only injury, as of right now, he's going to stay in and get some treatment, taking it a day at a time with Jordan Addison. But everybody else should participate in some fashion today, and we'll put out our injury report later on today.
So last I saw was questionable, Jordan Addison, with an ankle. Let me check that out right now. Still, yep, nothing. May miss the game. We'll see. So, significant ankle soreness, they're calling it. Significant ankle soreness. It'd be a huge blow for the Minnesota Vikings offense. If you could bracket or shade coverage and just keep an eye on Justin Jefferson and make sure he doesn't blow up, I like my chances if I'm the 49ers. Hell, even if Justin Jefferson may get his because he's just that good, I still love the 49ers' chances this week. But again, is it a trap game? Am I overlooking the Minnesota Vikings? 888-957-9570. One more from head coach Kevin O'Connell here of the Minnesota Vikings, talking about Kyle Shanahan and crediting him for building such a great team.
You know, you just got to give them so much credit for not only what they've built there, but as they've kind of reloaded their roster and capitalized on Brock, you know, being a young player and really putting a great group around him on offense, and then having those pillars, you know, really at every level of their defense with, you know, Bosa and the great interior players they have. Obviously, Fred's the best inside linebacker in the NFL, and then I think Ward is one of the best corners in the NFL. So they've really established themselves, and when they get, you know, Hufanga back as well, which could be this week, you really start seeing the layers to that defense. So it's personnel, it's play style, and then it's the scheme that they run that they're so well coached at playing so hard within that gives you a lot of challenges on game day.
Speaking of challenges on game day, I think the biggest challenge for the 49ers is going to be Sam Darnold. And that might sound, you might laugh and be like, oh, Sam, the biggest challenge is not Justin Jefferson. No, it's going to be Sam Darnold. Because I'll say this about him. And you can't say it a lot because if he had been on his game throughout in his career, and if he has been a good quarterback, he'd be, you know, still be with the New York Jets. But when he is on, I have seen it. I have seen Sam Darnold have good games in the NFL as a starting quarterback. He's got an arm. He's got athleticism. But he will make mistakes. If he limits his mistakes, the 49ers could find themselves in a shootout. If Sam Darnold limits his mistakes. So that's why it's important. I'm looking at Leonard Floyd. I'm looking at Nick Bosa. I'm looking at them to get strip sack fumbles. I'm looking at Charvarius Ward, who Kevin O'Connell just mentioned, to try to jump a route. You need to capitalize on your mistakes against this guy because he is going to give you opportunities to do so. And if you don't, you could find yourselves at the end of the game down in Minnesota. And then, if you're playing from behind late in the game, that could be a recipe for disaster for Brock Purdy. Although we have faith in Brock and Brock we trust, all that sort of stuff. Capitalize on the opportunities that present themselves when Sam Darnold is either scrambling in the pocket or trying to force a ball. Because he's going to do that multiple times in this game. And speaking of Sam Darnold, here's Greg Cosell, our 95.7 The Game NFL insider, who breaks down film better than anyone else on what he saw from Sam Darnold week 1 against the New York Giants.
Kevin O'Connell, obviously coming from the Shanahan and McVay tree, you saw Darnold with really clean footwork, really understanding the connection between his drop and the route concepts. You saw some really well-schemed, well-designed play concepts that really presented him with clean, defined reads so that he could hit his back foot, and if it required him just to hit his back foot and deliver, he'd do that. If it required a hitch, he did that really cleanly. He looked extremely comfortable. Now, it's one game. No one's going to sit here after one game and say, man, this guy's on his way to a great year. But if we're talking this same way after 6 or 7 games, then to me, you really have to talk about the coaching element. Because don't forget, he was coached last year, we know, with the Niners, even though he didn't play, and now he's with Kevin O'Connell, who's really, really good. So sometimes that's the difference, because you're dealing with a kid, and you know this, big kid, physical kid, throws the ball well. There's nothing from a physical trait standpoint that he can't do. He always had other issues, including mechanical and including what he was seeing. But he looked very comfortable this past week.
And it's up to the 49ers to make him look uncomfortable this week as they look to go 2-0 on the season. 888-957-9570. One more segment before handing it off to Bonte Hill and Joe Shasky. Give me scores, give me predictions, your lock of the weekend, all of that right here on the pregame show. Joe Spadoni on 95.7 The Game.
What's the matter, Kate?
I think John is cheating on me.
Why?
He claims to suddenly have ED, but he used to be an animal.
Oh, maybe he has low testosterone, a normal part of aging. Ken had that problem, and at Balanced Medical Solutions, they ran labs and evaluated him for only $99, and he found a solution that revived him completely.
Dub Nation, this is Tim Roy, and you're listening to the Pregame Show on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, Tim. Water season is going to be approaching before you know it. Phil Collins Friday is here, though. Payday Friday is here. Joe Spadoni is here with you for the next 12 and a half minutes.
Come down like a monkey.
Fonte Hill and Joe Shasky at the top of the hour. They're fired up. They got a lot on their minds. Where are you at, 49ers fans? 888-957-9570. You're not worried about the Minnesota Vikings. You're not worried about Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson. Why? We got Brock Purdy. And no, we might not have Christian McCaffrey. We got J.P. Mason. Guy rushed for over 130 yards last week. I mean, we're chilling. Right? Right? Or are you a little nervous? Or are you saying, I don't know. I mean, Sam Darnold, come on. You're confident heading into this game. Why shouldn't you be? And I shortchanged. I said over 130, which is right. Over 140, 147 to be exact for JP Mason. And I feel great about the 49ers' chances this week. Because I don't think you can call games trap games for them anymore. Haven't they earned that benefit of a team that doesn't fall for trap games anymore? I mean, we saw it last year. I was filling in for Shasky on a Friday in the morning roast, and Bonte and I were talking about, the Browns. And the Niners were undefeated heading into Cleveland at that point. It was going to be bad weather. Deshaun Watson wasn't playing. It was P.J. Walker. It's like, no. It's not enough to just beat the Browns for the Niners. You have to dominate them. The scoreboard matters here. And we slept on them, and I slept on them, and I laughed at the Browns. And what happened? They got punched in the mouth, and they lost the game because Jake Moody missed a field goal. But also, Brock didn't play well that game. He put the team in a position to win late, but for most of the game, he was not good. The bad weather was a problem for him. Ball slipping out of his hands and whatnot. But I'm looking at the game in Minnesota. No elements. It's going to be on turf. I think it's going to be a shootout between these teams. I really do. This feels like a, 28-30 to 20-21 kind of a game. I think both these offenses are going to score. I think the 49ers pull away late. And you consider that a shootout if you were saying 35-30 or something like that? Maybe. But I think the 49ers make enough stops late in this game, pull away, And they should win. They should win this game. Last time I checked, they were 5.5-point favorites on the road. It's got to be one of the biggest spreads of the weekend. I know the Ravens are 8.5-point favorites at home against the Raiders. But I'm looking at Brandon Ayuk. Can he shake off the rust of week one? I'm looking at Debo. I'm looking at George Kittle. I'm looking at these receivers for San Francisco, and I'm looking at Brock Purdy to have a big game on Sunday. I think he's primed for it. I really do. Speaking of Brock Purdy, I didn't get a chance to play the sound yesterday, but I wanted to. It's Alex Smith, obviously former San Francisco 49ers quarterback, former Kansas City Chief, and former Washington Commander. And now he's doing a lot of stuff everywhere. He was part of ESPN, all that. But here's Alex Smith talking about what makes a great quarterback to him. And then afterwards, talking about Brock Purdy. Take a listen.
Everybody has an opinion on what makes a good quarterback. I went around and wanted to talk to everybody, right? Like ask Aaron what makes a good quarterback. If you're a GM, who are you drafting? What are you looking for? And I think like we've just been off base on quarterbacks, right? Like they aren't measurables. It's nothing you can actually gain from the combine, right? Like I just don't think that stuff matters playing quarterback in the NFL. There's so many things that are not quantifiable, and you have to be able to like sit down with somebody, find how they're like wired, how they're motivated, right? You got to turn on the film and see what kind of instincts they have.
And here he is talking about Brock and one of his biggest attributes and what that is in comparison to his peers around the NFL.
I think he's got the most courage in the pocket than anybody in the NFL. I mean, this guy stands in there and take hits, and he is just like unflinching, right? Like his focus downfield never wavers. It's a gift to his. Obviously, he's accurate, but like I think that poise and courage is something that, again, like how do you quantify it? And we're so caught up in size and speed and arm strength and hand size and like that. And like, again, none of that stuff I really think matters. This guy can play ball, and he's been playing ball at a high level for a long time, and yet, again, he falls to the last pick in the draft. Like, how does that happen?
Well, it happens because of what you were just talking about, the measurables. And although he was a solid college player, I don't think anyone was wowed by a lot of his performances. That's how people fall. They get, if you're 6 feet tall or 6'1", whatever he's listed as, and you don't have those huge arms and you don't have, the lightning quick speed, that's just what is sexy. Why? Because the best quarterbacks in the NFL have those attributes. Patrick Mahomes has the arm. Lamar Jackson has the legs. Josh Allen has both. That's why. That's why. But Brock, to his point, has something that a lot of the guys don't have. Not to say Patrick Mahomes doesn't have courage in the pocket or Josh Allen. I think both of them do. I think Lamar Jackson does. But for Alex Smith to say that Brock has the most courage out of all the quarterbacks in that pocket, that's high praise. It is. Now, I don't agree with it, per se. I don't think he has the most courage. Shout out Courage the Cowardly Dog. You still making that show? But there is a difference when I see him versus Jimmy in that pocket. When I see him against, a guy like Derek Carr. When everything's not going well around you and everything's caving in, do you panic? And it's rare that I see panic in Brock Purdy's eyes or really with his feet. Because that's where you always go back to. The feet. If you're getting happy feet in there like a penguin, you might not be built for this. I see that, and I saw that time in and time out with Derek Carr when he was an Oakland Raider and a Las Vegas Raider after his injury. He got panicky in the pocket. He would get distracted. He wouldn't keep his eyes downfield when stuff started to collapse within him, and he gave up very quickly. I don't see that with Brock. I see a quarterback that stands in there, surveys the field, has the escapability and the know-how and the peripherals to feel the pressure, fade away from it, and either deliver a strike downfield or scramble when he needs to. That right there is just all you want in your quarterback sometimes. Feel the pressure, avoid it, and then make a decision. Don't get caught in this nexus of, what am I going to do? Because that's when you get sacked. That's when you fumble. That's when you throw a pick. And I don't see that a lot from Brock Purdy. And it's refreshing to watch because that's what the really good quarterbacks do. That's what Mahomes does. That's what Burrow does. That's what those guys do. Speaking of Burrow, I'm a little concerned about him. There's a good chance they're 0-2 after this week. And again, as I said, 9.5% of teams ever that start 0-2 make it. 9.5%. Basically, you're screwed. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are the last team to start 0-2 in 2022, and they made it. I got to check last year because I think the article I read was at the start of 2023. So apologies if anyone made it last year. But Bengals have done it. But you don't want to make your bones digging yourself a hole early and then crawling yourself out of it. So, 888-957-9570. Are you looking for Brock Purdy to have a breakout performance on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings? Because I sure the hell am. I love Brock Purdy. In fact, let me put my money where my mouth is. Let's look at the DraftKings Sportsbook right now and some of these player props, shall we? Why not? Where's my foot? There we go. NFL, football. All right, here we go. We're going to go passing props for this. Brock Purdy passing yards. So, plus 120, 250 or more. I like that. I think he throws for over 250 yards in this game. Absolutely. I love that. 225 is minus 165. Okay. 200 minus, and then the odds get worse and worse. 250 though, plus 120. Not mad at that. And then I like to go the sneaky rushing props for Brock. Oh, see, last week I think it was only that. It was small. It was like 12.5 or something like that. Or it was really close to whatever it was. He ended up getting like a half yard or yard more. It's at 25 rushing yards. That's a little rich for my blood. 25 plus rushing yards, but it's plus 600. Maybe, just maybe, as I was talking about him being decisive and scrambling, maybe he has one long one or a couple of them. That might more sprinkle a little bit on. It might be. What else we got here? Passing props, touchdown scores. Jordan Mason as the first touchdown scorer, plus 450. I'm not mad at that. Although, Shanahan feels like he wins the coin tosses more often. I swear that guy wins the coin tosses every single time. What's his record winning the coin tosses? 888-957-9570. Because my guy loves to defer and double dip at the end of the first half and at the beginning of the second half. That guy. So, if the Vikings are getting the ball first, maybe we'll see. Aaron Jones at plus 750, if you want to sprinkle on there too. But JP Mason, 2+ touchdowns, plus 370. Again, DraftKings. There you go. And I'm not that I'm a big gambler per se. Hell no. Well, not even close. I got burned a couple years ago when Brock Purdy broke his elbow against the Philadelphia Eagles. Then I just haven't really bet again. That once something like that happens, it really just, it throws you off. It does. From the Xfinity Mobile text line, looking forward to seeing the Sunday Night Football matchup between Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud. CJ is the real deal. Can Caleb become the real deal? That's kind of the question. It's early. I haven't been really impressed from any of the rookie quarterbacks, but it's early. Is this the Caleb Williams coming out party in Houston on Sunday Night Football? Be a good opportunity to do so. Bears defense is legit, and they got weapons on offense. Keenan Allen dropped the touchdown. That was tough. By the way, is that true? Did I see Keenan Allen's listed at like 230 or 40 pounds? That can't be right. That cannot be right. Keenan enjoying the donuts? The deep dish pizza out in Chicago? Okay. What do they got? Portillo's or whatever, the cake shakes out there? I can go for a cake shake right now. That sounds delicious. You know what else sounds delicious? Cup of the morning roast. Bonte Hill, Joe Shasky. Up next. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM in HD1 San Francisco on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app.